Hello and welcome to Broadcasting Scotland. It's Friday the 15th of October and this is Scotland at 7. I'm Andrew Wilson and this evening I'm hosting the programme from Edinburgh. First we will have today's coronavirus update and then we will look at today's news headlines from Scotland and around the world. As of 2 p.m. today, since the start of the pandemic, a total of 3,306,112 people in Scotland have been tested through the NHS Scotland labs and the UK Government regional testing centres. Of these, 2,703,588 have been confirmed negative and 602,524 have tested positive. There are 2,762 new cases of COVID-19 confirmed by a test, although not everyone with the virus will display symptoms, and not all those with symptoms will be tested. Of the people who have tested positive, 851 were in hospital last night, 45 of whom were in intensive care. The number of patients in Scotland who have died from complications caused by the coronavirus infection now stands at 8,907. That means that there are 32 new reported deaths of people who have tested positive. This number only includes those who have died, having received a positive test for the virus in the previous 28 days. The latest UK daily figures show that 138,379 patients who tested positive for COVID-19 have sadly died from their illness, and that is an increase of 145 since yesterday. This number refers to deaths in all settings, not just hospitals. And as of 8 a.m. this morning, 4,278,937 people had received the first dose of the COVID-19 vaccination and 3,873,790 had received their second dose. Now, the Conservative MP Sir David Amess has died after he was stabbed several times during a surgery at his constituency in Essex. Mr Amess had been an MP since 1983 and had represented Southend West in Essex since 1997. Sir David was stabbed several times at a church in Leigh-on-Sea. He is the second MP to be killed in just over 5 years after the murder of Joe Cox. Essex police said a 25-year-old man had been arrested on suspicion of murder. Officers were called to the scene at about 12:05 this afternoon. The police statement said, "We attended and found a man injured. He was treated by emergency services but, sadly, died at the scene." It has been confirmed that the victim was Sir David Amess. The news prompted shock and distress across the political spectrum. Flags at Parliament were lowered to half-mast. The House of Commons Speaker Lindsay Hoyle said the killing would send shockwaves across the parliamentary community and the whole country. In the coming days, he said, we will need to discuss and examine MPs' security and any measures to be taken. But for now, our thoughts and prayers are with David's family, friends and colleagues. The incident will raise further concerns about the safety of MPs who routinely hold advice surgeries to which anyone can turn up. In 2016, the Labour MP Joe Cox was stabbed and shot by a far-right terrorist shortly before holding a surgery. Brendan Cox, her widower, tweeted, "Attacking our elected representatives is an attack on democracy itself. There is no excuse, no justification. It is as cowardly as it gets." The First Minister tweeted, "This is awful beyond words. My thoughts and deepest condolences are with David's family, friends and colleagues. May he rest in peace." She then continued, "Elected representatives from across the political spectrum will be united in sadness and shock today. In a democracy, politicians must be accessible and open to scrutiny, but no one deserves to have their life taken while working for and representing their constituents." The SNP's Westminster leader, Ian Blackford MP, MP Ian Blackford said, "The news about Sir David Amess is utterly devastating. My thoughts and prayers are with his family, friends, staff team, and all his loved ones at this dreadful time. May he rest in peace." Sir David was a thoroughly decent man who was well liked across parties and the House of Commons. All of us are appalled, said Ian Blackford, at this barbaric attack, which was as senseless as it was cowardly. He was murdered while simply doing his job. In recent years, he continued, we have seen increasingly unacceptable levels of abuse and intimidation aimed at MPs, parliamentary staff and public figures. At its worst, this has resulted in violent attacks on multiple MPs and the murder of Jo Cox and now Sir David. All of us are united in sadness today and in calling for an end to this abuse, intimidation and violence. It is a threat to our democracy and it has to stop. In response to the immediate pressures on the NHS because of COVID-19 and the backlog in care caused by the pandemic, military assistance has been requested for NHS Lanarkshire and NHS Borders. Acute services in both health board areas are operating at capacity because of workforce shortages associated with the virus. A total of 63 military personnel will be deployed to NHS Lanarkshire. This includes 3 nurses, 45 military medics, 12 general duties troops and 3 drivers who will be working in acute settings. In NHS Borders, 14 military medics, 2 nurses and 4 additional military personnel will provide assistance in acute settings. A military driver will provide transport and 2 military medics will oversee operations from the Army's headquarters in Scotland. Military support within the 2 health board areas is due to start on the 19th of October and will continue initially until the 10th of November, although this will be kept under constant review. UK government austerity cuts to the NHS, public health and social care have killed tens of thousands more people in England than expected, according to the largest study of its kind. Researchers who analysed the joint impact of cuts to healthcare, public health and social care since 2010 found that even in just the following 4 years, the spending squeeze was linked with 57,550 more deaths than would have been expected. The findings, worse than previously thought, were revealed today in the journal BMJ Open. The research by the University of York also found that a slowdown in life expectancy improvement coincided with the government's sharp cuts to health and social care funding after David Cameron came to power a decade ago. Separate research by Imperial College London, published in the Lancet Public Health Journal, found that life expectancy in many communities in England was falling even before the pandemic. While life expectancy rose in most places during the first decade of the millennium, from 2010 on, in some areas it started to decline. By 2014, that deterioration had accelerated, researchers discovered, with life expectancy falling for women in almost 1 in 5 communities and for men in 1 in 9 places. The worst hit areas were typically in urban areas in the north, including Blackpool, Leeds, Liverpool, Manchester and Newcastle. Researchers have made various attempts at calculating the true impact of the austerity measures led by Cameron, but the University of York study is the first to jointly analyse the effects of the significant slowdown in NHS, public health and social care spending on death rates in England. Researchers said that real social care spending rose by 2.2% per capita of the population between 2001 and 2010, but fell by 1.57% between 2010 and 2015. The loss of social care funding caused 23,662 additional deaths, according to the findings. Real healthcare spend per capita rose by 3.82% between 2001 and 2010, but only by 0.41% between 2010 and 2015. The cuts to healthcare spending between 2010 and 2015 led to 33,888 extra deaths, the researchers have calculated. In total, the study suggested the constraints on health and social care spending during this period of austerity have been associated with 57,550 more deaths up to 2014 than would have been expected if funding had stayed at pre-2010 levels. At least 43,000 people may have been wrongly given a negative COVID test result, the UK Health Security Agency has said, as it announced the suspension of operations at a privately run lab in Wolverhampton. NHS Test and Trace has suspended testing operations by Immensa Health Clinic at its laboratory in Wolverhampton, the agency said. The move comes after an investigation into reports of people receiving negative PCR test results after they had previously tested positive on a lateral flow device. The NHS Test and Trace in England said about 400,000 samples had been processed through this lab, the vast majority of which will have been negative results, but an estimated 43,000 people may have been given incorrect negative PCR test results between the 8th of September and the 12th of October, mostly in southwest England. The Welsh Government said about 4,000 Welsh residents were among those given inaccurate COVID test results. NHS Test and Trace is contacting the people who could still be infectious to advise them to take another test. The UK HSA said it was an isolated incident attributed to one laboratory, but all samples are now being redirected to other laboratories. Dr. Will Welfare, the Public Health Incident Director at UK HSA, said there is no evidence of any faults with LFD or PCR test kits themselves, and the public should remain confident in using them and in other laboratory services currently provided. Immensa Health Clinic, which is owned by the founder of a healthcare firm called Dante Labs, was incorporated as a company in the UK in May 2020, just months before it started processing tests under a UK government contract. Its website shows it offers testing services for people travelling in and out of the United Kingdom. The SNP has won a seat from Labour on Falkirk Council after the party's candidate Emma Russell won the Falkirk South by-election. Newly elected councillor Russell won an impressive 39.2% of first preference votes, increasing the party's vote share in the ward by 3.5%, and she was elected at stage 4. Labour, who used to record a vote of 45% in the ward, came third with just 16%. Commenting, SNP councillor Emma Russell said, "I am absolutely delighted that the people of Falkirk South have selected me to represent them on Falkirk Council." The SNP has said that analysis from the House of Commons Library shows that Tory plans to cut the number of Scottish MPs to 57 would reduce the percentage of Scottish representation at Westminster to just 8.8%. That's the lowest level since at least 1918, when the voting franchise was extended, and it's down a quarter from the peak of 74 Scottish MPs over the past century. It follows previous reductions in the number of Scottish MPs, including the Westminster decision to reduce the number of Scots MPs by almost a fifth in 2005, when 13 seats were taken away. Commenting, the SNP spokesperson on the Constitution, Tommy Sheppard MP, said, "The only way to keep Scotland safe from damaging Westminster decisions being imposed against our will is to become an independent country, with full control over our democracy and the full powers needed to build a stronger, fairer and greener future." In 2014, people in Scotland were promised that if we voted against independence, we would lead the UK as an equal partner. But those promises were broken and now lie in tatters. European Union leaders are set to press ahead with measures to shield consumers from record-high energy prices that have curtailed industrial production and hiked consumer bills. EU leaders will meet on October the 21st to discuss the energy price spike and a toolbox the European Commission published this week, which confirmed the measures national governments can use to provide immediate relief to consumers. The draft of the leaders' conclusions invites the Commission and EU countries to use the toolbox to provide short-term relief to the most vulnerable consumers and to support European companies. As of Wednesday, 20 EU countries had drawn up such measures, including price caps, cuts to energy taxes, and subsidies for poorer households. That number is now set to grow, with Germany planning to cut the surcharge on consumers' energy bills, which helps fund renewable energy investments. The EU Commission said it would also assess measures the EU could take in the longer term to protect countries against price spikes, including joint purchasing of gas. EU leaders will ask the Commission to consider medium and long-term measures that would mitigate excessive price fluctuations, increase the EU's energy resilience, and ensure a successful green transition, the draft conclusions said. The leaders will also ask the European Investment Bank, which is owned by EU governments, to look at its capital headroom to speed up investment in the green transition with a view to reducing future disruption risks. Brussels has said a faster shift to green energy is the best defence against future price spikes, since it would reduce exposure to the volatile price of imported fossil fuels. The Net Zero and Energy Secretary Michael Matheson has urged the UK Government to ensure the Scottish cluster bidding for investment to deploy carbon capture infrastructure is fast-tracked. In a letter to the Minister for Business, Energy and Clean Growth, Mr Matheson highlights the ACORN project as being the most cost-effective and deliverable opportunity to deploy a full-chain CCS project in the UK, which will be essential for meeting statutory climate targets, not just in Scotland, but across the whole of the UK. The UK Government's Carbon Capture, Utilisation and Storage Cluster sequencing process will award 2 bidders into the process Track 1 status, providing investment to deploy CCUS at scale by the mid-2020s. Further clusters will receive Track 2 status, providing investment to deploy CCUS at scale by 2030. A new fund will help tackle the impact of social isolation, loneliness and the mental health inequalities that have been made worse by the pandemic. The £15 million Communities Mental Health and Wellbeing Fund aims to support adult community-based initiatives across Scotland. Grassroots at community groups and organisations will be able to benefit from the funds to deliver activities and programmes to people to reconnect and revitalise communities, building on examples of good practice which have emerged throughout the pandemic. The Mental Wellbeing Minister Kevin Stewart launched the funding at Sahelia in Edinburgh, a specialist mental health and wellbeing support organisation for Black and minority ethnic women and girls. Mr Stewart said, "This funding reflects the importance we place on promoting good mental health and early intervention for those in distress, and will help develop a culture of mental well-being and prevention within local communities. It is vital now, more than ever, as we start to reopen society, that we support the mental health and well-being of individuals. I am very keen that this benefits communities across all of Scotland." He continued, "I was pleased to be able to visit Sahelia this morning and meet some of the people involved with running and the project, and some of the people that they help." People living in Scotland's island-based communities will benefit from new funding for projects designed to support employment, community resilience and health and well-being. The £2 million Island Communities Fund, 29 successful community groups and businesses across 23 islands have been awarded grants of up to £150,000 each. Projects focus on developing sustainable economic activities on islands, with the majority of projects having a net zero theme, while also supporting the delivery of the Scottish Government's National Islands Plan. Projects include the installation of a range of spinning mills to allow full processing of fleece into yarn on Fulla, which will use electricity from Fulla's off-grid renewable network, as well as a project to expand a community garden on Lewis to improve mental health opportunities and reduce social isolation. The Island Secretary, Mary Gudgeon, said, "With just a few weeks until the eyes of the world are on Scotland for COP26, it's great to see more projects designed to address the growing climate crisis. There is so much potential across our islands, and we receive many innovative and creative applications. It's clear to me that our island communities are going to play an important role in helping us meet our ambitious climate change targets, and I'm excited about that." And that was our final news item this evening. In making these programmes, Broadcasting Scotland relies on the support of viewers and others who value our distinctive approach to news, current affairs and culture. If you would like to support us, and we would really like you to support us, then please consider subscribing or donating to Broadcasting Scotland. You will find the link to do that on the screen now. There are other ways in which you can contribute to our work. If you would like to volunteer to work with Broadcasting Scotland, either behind the scenes or in front of the cameras, or in any other way that helps our work and promotes the station, then please visit our website at www.broadcastingscotland.scot and send us a message there. Meantime, we will be here again at 12 noon sharp on Sunday with the full Scottish, so please tune in then. And so that's the way it is this Friday evening. Thanks to everyone for joining us on Broadcasting Scotland. I hope that you have a very peaceful weekend.
What distinguishes Broadcasting Scotland from a website or blog, apart from our brilliant programmes?
Hi there, I'm Gordon Ross.
Are the costs we face to enable us to produce those programmes. These costs are significant and ongoing. However, our facilities are able to do so much more if only we had the staff. In the last year, some of our supporters have cancelled their subscriptions. In one way, we would prefer it if it was because they didn't like us, rather than it being because of the financial pressures which we are all under because of COVID. The really positive outcome of our fundraiser is that at a time of economic challenge in Scotland, we will use your donations to create jobs and in a small way contribute to improving the Scottish economy. If you want us to be Scotland's independent broadcaster, able to provide an alternative mainstream television platform, then please support us.
Scotland is going to be an independent country.
Just imagine what we could do if we had even 1% of the BBC Scotland channel's budget. Imagine. And then please consider turning your imagination into reality. Please support us if you can afford it.